Hi, in this video, I want to show you how to sell to the subconscious. I'm literally going to be showing you how to use the science of how people's minds work to actually sell them on whatever you have to offer them. My name is Lolaoyafemi and I sell online with my content, with my stories and science. And I'm going to teach you how to do all three, how to sell with great content, how to sell with good stories, and how to sell with science. In today's video, we're literally going to go into the science of it. Now, when it comes to the mind, there are two things that actually run your body. The first thing is your conscious system, and the second thing is your subconscious system. The conscious system is the one we all know and we all like to think is in charge. In these books by Chip and Dan Hertz, they call it the rider and the elephant. And in their book, they said the subconscious is the elephant and the conscious is the rider. And just like anybody, like the rider thinks he's in control. The rider tries to push the elephant, but every time the elephant says no, the rider is stuck. And this is why a lot of times people will do things like they will say, I want to go on a diet, and they never stick to the diet. People would write a budget like, this year, I'm not going to spend so much. I want to pay back all my debts. Eventually, they end up spending so much and paying their debts. People tell themselves like, this year, that's why New Year's resolutions never work. It's because we always try to make decisions based on our conscious mind because we assume that we're all rational. But what you start to realize when you start to look at the science of why people buy, science of why people behave the way they behave, you start to realize that we're actually not rational. A lot of decisions that we make are made on the subconscious level. It's your subconscious that decides whether you're going to lose weight or not. It is subconscious that decides whether you're going to show up or not. Every single thing. It doesn't matter how many rules you have. Doesn't matter how many vision boards you design. If your subconscious does not agree with what you have to do, you're not going to do it. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to tap into the subconscious of your buyers. Yeah. So the subconscious mind works in a three-step way. There's something that triggers. So I like to call the method the loop method. And if you've studied anything like Atomic Habits by James Clear or any books that talk about habits, you realize that really the entire mind works in a loop format. So there's something that starts the loop. I like to call this thing your trigger. The second thing is the reinforcement. And the third thing is closure. So for example, let's say I'm on a diet and I am passing by Dunkin' Donuts and I could see the big donut sign. The external trigger is seeing the donut sign. The moment I see it, my body responds, my subconscious brings an internal trigger of hunger. And suddenly it doesn't matter how many rules and regulations, how many calories I'm counting, I am buying that donut. Why is that? It's because the moment I saw the donuts, a loop was opened in my subconscious mind. So the moment I see the Dunkin' Donuts, what happens? Instantly, my mind responds because there's already an existing loop for Dunkin' Donuts. If I've never eaten donuts before, if I don't know what donuts even taste like, and I'm passing by Dunkin' Donuts, I can guarantee you I'm not feeling tempted to go in to buy it. The only reason people feel tempted to buy something is because they've experienced it before, or they can imagine themselves experiencing it. So at the same time, we want to tap into that emotion. So what this means is in the subconscious mind, it works by triggers, reinforcements, and it ends with a closure. The moment we open a loop with a trigger, the person doesn't really stop until they get what they want. So a trigger is something that causes something else to happen, like the Dunkin' Donuts example. Another example is if I was saying that I'm not going to buy, let's say I say this year, I'm not going to buy any luxury things. I just want to, save money. I want to budget. I want to do all the things. I want to pay back all my debts. Maybe that's my goal for this year. But there's this Chanel bag and I see the bag and one part of my mind is like, but you have to have the bag. Now, that part of it, the moment I see the bag and that part of my mind responds, that's the beginning of a loop. I start to have that trigger. Now, there are two things that will happen. Number one, I could walk away from the bag and not hear about the bag again, and eventually the loop would just naturally fade. But if after I see maybe the first ad, or I see the bag somewhere, I see someone else carry the bag, if the next day I see another thing that reinforces that trigger, I will not be able to stop until I finally buy. And this is something that big companies know, like billion-dollar companies know, which is why they bombard you with ads, which is why if you know Coca-Cola, for example, they spend millions of dollars every year on ads. Why? Because they know that all they need to do is open a loop in your mind. The moment Coke opens a loop in your mind, every other ad is just reinforcing that first trigger. Every single ad. They don't have to open new loops. It's just that first loop. And all they have to do is just send more reinforcement. And so when it comes to triggers, there are literally 3 key triggers that are internal triggers. So triggers are divided into 2. They're internal triggers, that's things that come from within you, and then they're external triggers. External triggers are the things that companies actually use. So like Coke, we use a family drinking Coke and excited. That's an external trigger. They will always use external triggers actually activate your internal triggers. So if for example, when people say like sex sells, so you're reading through a magazine, you see a beautiful woman, she's carrying a drink, blah, blah, blah thing. What happens to you? You're triggered. Why? Because they've put an external trigger. So now an external trigger, the goal is to trigger or to activate your own internal triggers. And when it comes to internal triggers, there are 3 internal triggers you want to know. The first one is emotional triggers. So these are things like fear, anger, love, boredom. Netflix is literally taking over boredom as a trigger, right? These are like your 3. So emotions are the first one. The second one are memories, nostalgia, something that happened. If someone talks about 9/11, it triggers something for different generations. If someone talks about the Great Depression, it triggers something for some people. If someone talks about the recession, talk about COVID, those things trigger because those are things that are memories. The third one is like sensations. So things like smell, touch. For example, when you see the color red, what do you associate red with? Red is associated with power, with danger, right? Things like that, sensory stuff. So we have 3 internal triggers. We have memories, we have emotions, and we have sensations. Sensory things like, every time I smell mama's cooking, every time I see something, it feels so homely. This looks luxury. All those things are triggers, and it's intentional. We all already have internal triggers. Now, for a company, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you create external triggers that match the internal triggers of your ideal clients. Now, I know I've gone all geeky on you, so it's like, Lola, what are you talking about? Where do I start? What are you saying? Let's go into the tactical stuff. How does this work in your business today? Number 1, you have to identify what's the core internal trigger for the people who are buying from you. Why do people want to buy from you in the first place? Let's say you're a business coach. Are people buying from you because they're tired of their job and they just want to make more money? Or are they buying from you because they want to be able to travel the world with their family? Different things. So for example, I've worked with 2 different coaches, and one coach was more of a let's make money, let's have fun coach. Also a fantastic business coach. So make money, have fun, travel the world, buy new cars, buy those stuff. That is. And that kind of lifestyle, it triggers a certain type of person. On the other hand, the other coach was more of a family person. I'm making money because I want to be there for my kids. I'm making money because I want to do a family vacation. There's no right or wrong way, but the main thing is you have to determine, or you have to decide, what triggers do my people have? And a simple way to know this is just by asking them. Literally send a poll, send an email, send something to your existing clients and just say like, hey, I'm just doing some market research. Why did you choose to work with me? Why did you choose to buy this thing instead of that thing? Why are you working with me one-on-one instead of joining the group program? Just find out why they actually want the results that you promised them, and that will help you identify the trigger. Now, the second thing you want to do is you want to mirror whatever the trigger is by their external trigger. And I'll give you a simple example. So for example, when Chanel sells their bag, what's the internal trigger? It's an emotional thing. It's a trigger of status. When you're using a Chanel bag, when you're using any designer thing, every time you walk into a room, you feel powerful, you feel excited, you feel like you're on top of the world, you feel people are looking up to you. right? And so what does Chanel do when they do the ads? They don't do an ad of someone suffering and the person hasn't eaten in days. They don't do that. All their ads are going to show you exactly what you want to see. They will have an ad of a powerful woman who's looking beautiful. They'll have an ad of someone holding the bag and looking like she's on top of the world. You will never see a Chanel ad and you feel like maybe the model is broke. Never. You always feel like, this is powerful. This is great. Same with Rolls Royce. Like a Rolls Royce ad will always make you feel like this is comfort. This is exclusive. This is because they know that that is what is the internal trigger that their people have. So what you want to do, so there are two ways to use this. The first thing is you have to identify what is the internal trigger that my people have. And the second thing you want to do, which I think is very important, is you want to mirror that trigger. So the reason people are buying your stuff is because you make them feel powerful, you make them feel they can have a legacy. Then when you're running your ads, when you're doing your marketing, you want to talk about power, you want to talk about legacy, you want to talk about the things that matter to them. And what will happen is you start to attract more of the right people. And people will want to buy from you and they won't even know why. They'll be like, this other person sells something that's cheaper. This other person sells stuff that's more intimate, but I don't know why. I just want to work with you because I just like you. I like your vibe. I feel like you know me. I feel like we know each other. It's because you're mirroring back your triggers. And this is something that billion-dollar companies do all the time. And I think you should do it too. So here's your homework. I will always give you homework. Yes, you're stuck with me. I will give you homework. Here's your homework. What's the first internal trigger that your people have? Why do people want to get the results from you? And the second homework that you'll do is how can you make that internal trigger? How can you mirror that and make it an external trigger? So that's what you want to do. And if you're not sure how to do it, put it in the comments. I am here for you. Now, before I go, I'm going to sell you Story Selling Sprint. So don't even run away. You have to join Story Selling Sprint. Like if you want to tell stories online, you want to be able to tap into people's subconscious mind. One of the easiest ways to do that is stories. And Story Selling Sprint is the best, and I think it's like the best of the best storytelling programs you could ever join on the internet. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the one who did it. I'm saying that because that's what everyone who takes it says. And so 30 days, I will give you a prompt every single day. I will guide you. My team will be here to support you to tell a story every single day for 30 days, but just not just any story. It's a story that will actually sell. So if you're up for it, click the link below. And if you're thinking like, so why do I even start with any of this? You can also still click the link below. You'll get details for not just Story Selling Sprints, but all my other offers that can help you get started with selling with science, stories, and content. Have a fantastic day.